And it is 9:30. Yay, I don't have to listen to me ramble anymore. Thank you guys for joining again our third webinar, Path, Choice, and Change, presented by oh, man, I just totally messed up. Sorry. Julie Lackey. If you guys have questions for our speaker, please make sure you use the chat feature and just put your questions as they come in the chat feature, and then when she gets done with all our content, we will go back to our chat and let her answer those. Other than that, I will turn it over to her so she can get all our content in. Thanks, guys.
Okay, welcome. Thank you for being here. I am excited to be here, and this is my second webinar, so be kind. If I'm messing up, someone let me know. Jen, I'll leave that to you, okay? Yes, I wanted to title this Path, Choice, and Change because this really is about the choices that students with intellectual or developmental disabilities should have. And so I am director of Lead, Learn, Live. Lead, Learn, Live is a nonprofit that has the mission of beginning post-secondary programs for students with intellectual or developmental disabilities in Oklahoma. I am also a parent, and our son, my husband's and my son, is 21. He has Asperger's syndrome or high-functioning autism. I know Asperger's isn't a thing anymore, but that's what he identifies with, so that's where we're going to stay. And so we've always been advocates for him. Parent advocates are critical, and you guys, no matter what capacity you're in, whether professional or professional parent, be an advocate, because these students, these individuals really need that. So a little bit about some background so you know from whence I come. We were looking at the potential for what our son would do after high school at about 8th grade. And we, again, had always been advocates. We had been very involved in his education. He has always been on an IEP and had been very successful through school with his IEP and the supports that provided. We also started social skills groups in multiple sites in the Tulsa metro and Wasso area, Bixby, and that was really helpful. And I also have co-led a mom support group for several years for moms of kids with Asperger's or high-functioning autism. So, you know, we've been around and been very much advocates and involved in the K through 12 world, and really started looking about, okay, so what does after high school look like? And so between us in our family, we'd always talked about college. We'd taken our son with us to college games. My husband and I both went to college. We knew that college would be very beneficial to our son because he was interested in the things that a college education could provide. And so that was our assumption. Now, I was sitting in a waiting room, a therapy waiting room, which is the best connection points in the world, and talking to a parent, and that parent said, so what do you think about what's next for your son after high school? And I said, well, he'll go to college, you know, just like we did. And she said, really? Have you really looked at how that might work? Because, you know, she knew our son, she knew the IEP he was on, the supports he required. And she said, I think that you need to check into that because I don't know that that's going to be successful. And that was very kind of sobering. And so I thought, I'm a person that likes to research and have data. And so I thought, well, that's one opinion. So I went ahead and started looking into this. And so as I looked into it, I found that statistically, only about 28% of individuals with intellectual or developmental disabilities attend any post-secondary. And looking a little bit further, I was thinking about the supports that they would need. found out that the supports that are provided in higher education are based on the Americans with Disabilities Act. And that's a piece of legislation that is based on access, barrier-free design. It is not the type of supports that had helped our son be successful. It focuses on wheelchair access, hearing, vision, physical access is what the focus is on for the most part. And so disability services in higher education are very good in providing those supports. However, the supports that an IEP contains and the supports that our son had were not what the ADA model would provide. And so we knew that he would probably not be successful without those supports. But we thought, well, okay, so 28% of students with intellectual or developmental disabilities go to college. Our son could be one of those. How do they fare when they go? And so we looked further and found that only about 10% of that number. So think of a funnel. We've got our 28%. Out of that 28%, the funnel gets very small, with only about 10% of those folks being able to finish their program or graduate. Those were not good numbers. And so that was disheartening. And we looked at statistics then on employment success and thought, okay, so if our son is going to get out of high school and go to work, what does that look like? And there are dozens and dozens of articles, we're all very familiar with that more education equals better employment outcome. That's a statistical fact. And so we really were very much still on the education track because those two things are connected. And then we thought, well, okay, let's look further at what our world is. And our world is in the autism spectrum world. And so statistically speaking, we started looking at, well, does this, hold true with folks on the spectrum? And so we looked at statistics on individuals with autism working. And the statistic hovers right around 50%. You'll read 53, 54% of individuals with autism have any kind of work after high school. And then out of that 53%, think of your funnel again, if you would. Out of that 53%, only 1/5 of those, 1/5, are able to have full-time or meaningful employment, meaning employment that is more career driven, more able to pay bills and support themselves. So that number was again disheartening. And then on the independence area, the thing that really galvanized this effort into going into high gear was that 79-80% of individuals with autism live as dependents for their entire lives. And so that number is not something that any parent really is interested in if they can help it. And so we felt that that was not a great outlook for our son. And so we knew that he needed college. We knew that he was interested in what college could provide. And we thought, well, what can we do and what's out there, and how do we find out what's out there? And so we went into a research phase because we wanted there to be choice, not only for our son, but for the multitude of folks that we have come across during our time as advocates in this world. So we started researching, and so we connected with industry experts all across the nation, connected with folks that had started from scratch with no programs in a state like we were looking at doing. We flew to visit different programs, cold called and called everyone and anyone that had a program that was of interest, and talked to directors. We connected with industry experts that were not running programs, but connected to individuals with disabilities Think College has been one of our partners from pretty much the first 6 months of research into this, which started about 7 years ago, by the way. It'll be 7 years this April, not that I'm keeping track how long this has taken. So connected with Think College within the first 6 months, and they have been by our side through the whole thing. The co-director serves on our advisory board, and that expertise is invaluable. So we're just researching what was out there and trying to figure out what choices there were out in the nation that we did not have in our state and why that was. And so also connected with Sooner Success, an amazing agency that their director approached me probably within 18 months after I started this effort and said, hey, what can we do? And so they have been lovely partners in helping to connect again, especially legislatively early on, and have just been there to get the word out, as well as give us insight to what was going on in our state. College of Charleston REACH is one of the programs that I visited early on. And they are really a best practice program in the nation. Their outcomes are incredible. Their model is very comprehensive. And when we'll talk a little bit later, REACH is the name of the program. And the program that we started first is based really on a REACH model for the most part. Went through speaking and educating. I basically, if anyone would open the door for me, I would be in there talking their ear off about this. Trying to start it as a grassroots effort because I do have a job during the day, and thought that, okay, you know, we'll be able to connect legislatively, follow the models of other states, get an influx of finances from legislator and or agencies, and that did not happen. But we were able to meet a lot of people and form a lot of our network that has helped us be so successful. So those relationships are part of that path for this program to even be there. Without those relationships and without all of the years of building infrastructure, the program would really not be successful, I have no doubt. Connected with the Oklahoma State Department of Higher Education regents, a legislature, although they could not give us funding because we all know the situation that Oklahoma is in on funding. We were able to work with them to get House Resolution 1065 written and enrolled for our state. And you can look that up. What it is basically, although it's not a bill, and no, it doesn't have any teeth per se, what it does do is it is something that is enrolled in the books of the state legislature, and it does give credibility for legislators to pay attention. It also helps others know that this is a state effort. It's not a one person, gosh, it sure be nice if I had a place for my kid effort. It's for a population that is incredibly underserved. And so what HR 1065 does is it encourages everyone that's connected to the disability world to work together in this state to support these programs going forward. Because our mission as Lead, Learn, Live is to fund and then partner to start 4 or 5 programs in the nation, in Oklahoma, because there are over 260 programs in the nation, and we have 1 in operation right now in our state. And so students need a whole lot more choice than that. There is a population that is not being served. And so those relationships are such a part of the path. And I say that just so everyone understands that this very much is a very big infrastructure, partnering with a lot of folks and expertise. I know my limits, and I know where I have expertise, and I know where I look to experts, and that's really important. So I hope that you guys are advocates as well and kind of pick your thing and then go for it, because it's such a need in our state. Okay. What is the program? All right, the program is at Northeastern State University. It is the Riverhawk Scholar Program. It is funded by Lead, Learn, Live. The model that we are using follows a model from South Carolina, where a nonprofit found the funding basically and partnered with universities for them to start model programs through a memorandum of understanding process, which is what we're doing. And through that, South Carolina was able to start 5 programs. That's basically our model. They started from nothing, and that's where we started from as well. NSU's Riverhawk Scholar Program is a partnership between the College of Continuing Education and the College of Education, which is really important because the College of Continuing Education is unique in that it does things differently, right? It's continuing ed. And so, as you may know, that hits a population of all kinds of folks. It hits folks that go to college a little bit differently, that do things a little bit differently. And so that gives us the flexibility to work into the model that they have in place, which is very important. One thing we learned from talking to all the directors across the nation was, you really need to work with the current university structure. If you don't have to recreate the wheel, don't, because, a university is a big system and they do things for a reason. And if you can fit into that process, that is best. So College of Continuing Ed provides that because they already do things differently. They're very passionate, creative folks, and it's a blessing that we have been able to work with them. The College of Education, NSU, is very well known for being a teaching institution and turning out great teachers, and so that was a great fit for the program because of the focus on teaching differently. These students learn a little differently. They need the flexibility of great minds that are open. Another reason NSU was such a great fit was we did target regional universities for these first programs because they are smaller. The administration is easier to reach, easier to get sign-offs quicker. And NSU as a whole was just incredibly welcoming. As Dr. Turner, the president, said when we signed the MOU, it's just the right thing to do. And I think that pretty much sums it up, actually. So we are very blessed to be at NSU with Riverhawk Scholar. So what does that look like? Okay, so again, we are patterning loosely after REACH in College of Charleston, with some other program components thrown in from other colleges, from other programs. And so this is a comprehensive, integrated program. And what that means is this is a program that is a department in the university. It is not a CLE, a college living experience, if you are familiar with those, that is sort of housed outside the college but works with the college. It's not like that. It is a full-on program in the college. And so it's fully integrated, meaning that the students of Riverhawk Scholar are students, 100%. They have access to everything that every other student has access to. Very, very important. Of that 260 program number I named, that is not true for all of those programs. And so, when you're looking at programs across the nation, you need to really look at, is this a fit, because certain programs provide things in certain ways. And it was very important for us as a nonprofit to do a model that had students 100% as students. So it is fully integrated. It is comprehensive. It is a 4-year program. And so it is a residential program as well. So this is on the campus of Tahlequah, and it has 4 pillars, which are independent living, social skills, academics, and career development. And so independent living, what does that look like? Well, that looks like living independently. How about that? It is students living in a dorm with a roommate, with suite mates. The situation of housing is lovely at NSU because they are in a suite, meaning there's 2 bedrooms with 2 students in each with a shared bathroom. And so they are not in the old style dorms that, you know, you have 50 shower stalls and 50 toilets and all that kind of thing. It's a great setting for them. And they are learning how to do life independently. They do have a trained RA or SA on the floor with them, and that trained person is a coach. They are not a parent. They are not a paraprofessional. They are not a professor. They are a coach. They are a junior or senior, and they want to be there. They are paid. They're paid for 20 hours of their time, as well as have a stipend on their housing. So, because this is work for them, you know, it is something they want to do, but it is work and it is a load because they are still a student. And what do we know about any young adult as far as who they listen to? Well, they really listen to peers a lot of times better than a quote adult. And so that's why it was important that this be a junior or senior peer, because they can go in and say, you know what, you stink, you need to take a shower. Or they can really get in there and help them on their level, which is very important. They learn how to do all the things that we learned intuitively. These students need a little bit more help. They need more direct instruction. So that RA is there to not just do one laundry overview and then they're good to go, like maybe you or I were. They need multiple times on how to do laundry. They need assistance in learning how to follow that alarm and get up every day. They need to know how to do time management. They need to know that you can't drop everything in a gigantic pile in your dorm room and find it. They need to learn, you know, they have direct instruction needs that a typical student doesn't, which is why the program is in place, to help them learn that on their own. I will say that the RAs are indispensable because they provide that piece of independent living that you may have thought your son or daughter was fairly independent, but when they actually are living in a different place outside your home, it's a whole different thing. And so residential life, very, very important. Another part of residential life is also relationships. So these students have to learn how to get along with roommates. They have to learn how to not get along with roommates in a graceful fashion. They need to know how to unstop a toilet. I mean, you know, all the things that we really take for granted. These students really need to learn and be able to start problem solving, and that's a big deal. Another part of independent living is transportation. Very, very important is the fact that most of these students will not drive and do not drive. And so learning how to do public transportation is very important. And so that is also included in the independent living portion. So independent living. Social skills, critical piece. I mean, I'm going to say that of all these pieces because they're also critical, but the social skills, I'll say that larger cohorts in these programs are typically students with Down syndrome or students with autism spectrum. Now, as any of you know that works with these populations, that is a very different looking social profile. So students with Down syndrome may be overly friendly and very loving, maybe a little too much, and need to learn how to dial that back, what's appropriate, what's not, and have help with that. students on the autism spectrum may tend to self-isolate, not get out there, not engage as much as they should. And so they need to learn how to get out there and what works for them. The program has both social and fitness mentors. We looked at programs all over the nation. Really like the models. There are only a few that have the fitness mentor component. That was really important because, as we all know, establishing healthy habits early on is so important. And so the social mentors spend about 6 to 8 hours a week with the students. And what do they do? Well, they do social. They eat with them, they hang out with them, they do stuff with them. They're a friend, and they are trained. They are screened to be there. They are not paid. We looked again at models all over the nation, and there are programs that pay their social mentors. We felt that when you pay someone, it does change the paradigm of the relationship. They're kind of an employee, and looking at that person as sort of a client, and that was really not what this is about. This is about really letting the kids learn social and be friends because they want to be friends. And so there is a heavy training section involved for these mentors, and able to understand the student they're working with and the goals and objectives there. The fitness mentors spend 2 to 3 times a week doing something physical. It doesn't have to be sweating in a gym. It can be swimming, it can be bike riding, it can be walking, whatever is physically active that gets the students out. And what does that do? Well, that's another avenue for social. That's another avenue for knowing what's appropriate in the gym. That's another, that's just another aspect of social. Another component of social skills is the students are required to join an active club or organization. We've all been a member of clubs possibly that you join and they may meet once a month or once a quarter and they don't do anything. And that's not going to do anything for these students. So the club or organization has to be active. And so the mentors may attend with them, may not attend with them, may check up on them because, for instance, we all know it might be a very slim possibility, I don't know, that a student perhaps on the autism spectrum might join a club, go to that club's meeting and stand in the corner on YouTube. And so we don't want that. So we really want those students to be able to flex their social muscle and learn that social landscape. So social skills. Academics. Okay, if you're in college, you are going to do some academics. And so the model that Riverhawk Scholar has is a mix of 2 course catalog courses from the regular catalog and 1 Riverhawk Scholar supports course. And so what that looks like is, for instance, this first year, the classes in the first semester were university strategies and personal health. So it's something that every freshman has to take. So it's not different, it's the same. It's the same in the university system. If you're a freshman, you take these classes. That's what these students took. And so the Riverhawk Scholar Support course was Introduction to College. And because these students, again, they need more direct instruction. So that is the time for the program staff to work with the students, help them have that more direct instruction on Blackboard, which is the electronic system the university uses, help them know how to email professors, how not to email professors, help them know how do they check all their assignments, how do they stay up with their work, what do they do when they're missing a class or late to class. There was a component that I loved that was worked in that was 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And so that was taught to these students at their level. So it's basically just helping them, if you will, build the infrastructure to help them be successful in the college world. And so the 2 course catalog courses are taken, and if the student is able to do the work for credit, they can. However, they would have had to go through the regular application process, meet the university guidelines on ACT, et cetera. Because obviously courses for credit cannot be modified in any way. Most of these students will be taking courses in an audit fashion. However, it is a course load that has assignments, that has tests, that has homework. It's basically just the regular class, but the work and the amount of work and the type of work that's presented is modified for the ability level of that student. Every one of these students is different, and so every one of them needs something different. I did not say this before, but that's one of the reasons that the programs stay fairly small. The first cohort at NSU's Riverhawk Scholar program was 5 students. And so the program will go to about 8 to 10 a year after that, because, you know, the ability of being able to individualize the supports for these students is critical to the success of the program and the success of the students. So that's very important. Students also have tutors 4 days a week that work with them very intensively and help them work in the modifications or the accommodations that they need. And so the program staff works with professors to help to know, why is that student taking the course? What do they need? What is, you know, what's the deal? Because again, this is brand new, you know, guys, nobody knows anything about this in Oklahoma, frankly. And so it's blazing new ground. And so the staff works with the professors to help them, train them, and help them understand this new population that is being served. Being an adult learner is very unique, and it is very new for these students, just like any college student. You know, going from a under your mom and dad's house learner in high school to on your own adult learner in college is a big difference. And for these students, they feel that more intensely than a regular student. So the supports that are in place are very much key to their success. Okay, I missed certificate or degree. And so what that means is, right now it is a certificate course. Of this first cohort started with students, all of them went through a separate application process, which is online. NSU Riverhawk Scholar Program applications are there online, and it is a very intensive application process, lots and lots of questions. Lots of information needs to be turned in. It's also an interview process. And all of the first cohort is a certificate only, meaning they're not doing the work for credit. And so certificate program right now, and I will say a little bit something about that in a minute. NSU will be on track by the end of next year to get the Comprehensive Transition Program designation. That CTP designation is important, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but that helps with students being able to have federal aid, Pell Grants, go through the FAFSA process. So we'll get to that in a second. Career development, the fourth pillar. So career development is an on and off campus internship process. And so students are working in a field of their interest. They are learning, you know, what works for them, what doesn't work for them. They are working both paid and unpaid on and off campus. And so it's a process that through the 4 years, students basically are doing almost what you think of time limited job sampling, right? So a student may come in and think that they want to do one thing when in fact they really need to do something quite different. I'll tell this story because I've told it throughout my time doing this. Is Edie Cusack, who's the director of REACH in College of Charleston. When I first visited her, which will be about 6.5 years ago, she told this story, and it was a story about a student that had done very well. It happened to be on the autism spectrum, and had basically his senior year had his dream job. It was a graphic design job of some sort, and it was paid and everything was great. And she got a call from the employer that said, you know, I'm having a problem with your student. And she said, okay, well, first of all, he's your employee first, but okay, what's your problem? And so basically, this student was asking every attractive girl out repetitively. And so that was a problem. He wouldn't take no for an answer. And so long story short, the employer called back another couple times, and Edie said that, you know, let's make this easy. Help me understand what your process is for, you know, employee issues. And so, of course, just like any employer, they went through their process, whatever that was, maybe talk to them, write them up, give them probation, etc., whatever. And she said, you know, do that process, okay? Just do the process. And she said, you know, we were working with him as well here, and that wasn't really working necessarily. But I'm sorry, my dog is barking, forgive me. So the employer, sure enough, called back after a time and said, this isn't working out. I think I'm going to have to let him go, but I don't want to because he's your student. And she said, actually, he's your employee. So she said, do me a favor, just let me know when you're going to let him go, and I want to be in my office. And he said, okay. So the appointed time arrived, and so she was in her office, and the student showed up very upset. And I am so sorry, guys. Can you hear that dog? I apologize. Anyway, so the student showed up very, very upset, and she said, you know, she said, I don't know you, but she said, I've been in special education for 20 some years. And she said, I will tell you that about 90% of parents would have probably patted that child on the back, young adult, baked them some chocolate chip cookies and said, you know, honey, that probably wasn't the right thing for you. We'll get a better fit for you and it'll work out. And she said, that's not what we're about. And she said, that's not what we did. She said, we very much had that student own those choices on what happened with him. We helped him, kind of built a module to help him understand what his behavior did. And then he learned from that. And so second semester, he got another internship, and he was great. It went very, very well. And so I think that's a great example of how the career development piece needs to work, because it really isn't just about everything just going fantastic and these students start and everything's perfect. It's about having the students be able to fail, but they have the supports in place to help them then be able to rise. And Edie has a term that I love, which is called the dignity of risk. And I think that it's very appropriate for what these programs provide, because it is these students taking a risk to pursue their dreams and their choice, and being able to fail, but they have the supports in place to help them learn from it. And I will tell you that I did ask her about a follow-up on that student, and he actually is working at Disney now. So that was amazing. And so, okay, I'm going to be skipping some of these slides because I never have enough time. The CTP is what we talked about. You guys can be looking at this later, but it is a federal designation which allows the students to be able to apply for Pell Grants and get federal aid. And that's very, very important. It's also a basic quality, and it is not the highest quality in the world, but it is a base that provides some standards for these programs. There are national standards that are being worked on. However, they are not in place yet. I think college is very involved in that. And like I said before, out of that 260 programs, they're very, very different. So the standards are all over the place on what they do or don't provide. We looked at a best practice standard, and so our quality and what we are providing through NSU is very high because that provides the best outcome data information. So one thing that I do get on occasion is, you know what, how much does this cost? And that all works into post-secondary education success. So the program costs the same as any full-time degree-seeking student living in a dorm with a full meal plan that has a program with a specialty program fee. So it's based, again, as I said before, on the standard process that a university uses. It's very important that it mirrored basically what a regular student would pay. And so what that means is that's a college tuition, right? Housing, fees, books, the whole bit. And so that's expensive. And yes, it is. And so the question then can come up, okay, well, so these students don't get a degree, you know, is that of value? And so what drives post-secondary education success? What drives success after high school? And so indicators now and statistics now will tell you that, you know, where at one time, if the 4.0 and the brilliance level was what would determine your ability to be successful in life, really what determines your success in life now, the indicators are how well you can do social in high school is the indicator. And so the social part of this program is so critical for that success. You know, the social capital, the building relationships that comes from these programs, learning how to build relationships, the self-determination that comes for being able to learn how to problem solve and make decisions, the individual growth and development that's done through pursuing a student's dream about what they want to do, and then the personal development is huge. There is no other micro world basically that students can be in after high school that is a world of their same age peers, and that college environment is unlike any other because, you know, that they have peers all around them that are learning and growing and trying to do all the things they're trying to do and modeling good behavior and sometimes modeling bad behavior. And, you know, that's okay too, because that's the world, right? When our son was young, we had looked at, gosh, it'd be great to live in a quote world that was really, really safe. But you know what? That's not the world. And so these students need the ability to learn and need to be able to progress and grow just like any of us did. The program is transformative, I will tell you that. Starting with the students, it goes to the faculty, administration, start to interact with these students. This is a population, again, that has not been on college campuses. So, you know, there's a little bit of mystery. And so it takes some of that mystery away. I was in an advisory board meeting with a professor, and, you know, she had been very supportive, but didn't really know a lot about the program. Well, she had a conversation with one of the Riverhawk Scholar students who wants to be a history teacher and had joined her organization. And she came to that board meeting and just said, you know, you all have got to meet these students. If you don't know them, you need to know them because they're amazing. I wish all of my students had the passion and the interest that this student had. So, you know, it really does make an impact and start to really ripple out. It starts to change the campus. There have been a great supply of mentors and tutors, and, you know, the students start really wanting to be involved and help and get to know these students. Because these students have the internship part that goes out into the community towards junior and senior year, the community starts to then have a touch point with this population and starts to have an understanding and support them, which is amazing, because that also, of course, changes the families, and frankly, will change our state, because other states have started to see a decrease in social services, because when these students get out, they're actually able to earn a living wage. When I have one of my super short presentations, this is, one of the 2 or 3 slides I show, because frankly, this is pretty much the presentation. When you're looking at statistics, we looked at statistics of the best practice models that we're modeling after, and comparatively, students' outcomes after high school that were on an IEP with an intellectual developmental disability, after they get to the high school, if they go directly into the workforce, have a 36-38% percentage of being able to live independently or having paid employment. Programs that we're modeling after, when the students complete them, have a 70% and above statistic. That is not a small change. It is a life-changing percentage. And so that is really pretty much the main focus of this, because what's the goal? It is not just to have a place to put a student for 4 years. It is not just to have them hang out. It is for them to be able to pursue their dream, to have a choice, and to be able to learn to be independent and have employment that they love. Early on, there weren't a lot of community engagement statistics being kept. However, more of these programs are starting to keep them. And actually, this is an older statistic that I was at the State of the Art conference in the fall, and now this percentage of community engagement, and it's not just the programs we're modeling after, but that's up into the 90% from Think College. And so that community engagement number is a huge indicator of folks being able to be healthy and happy, less suicide, less depression, less health issues. That community engagement number is a biggie. And so that makes a difference. So what can you do? How can you be prepared? So, talk about it. Talk about it with not only your family, but talk about it with those around you. Talk about it to your schools and to your legislators, to everyone. So folks know that these programs are there and what a difference they make. Start to work with your kids to have some independence at home, because it is a huge change to go from your home to college. It's a big deal. And so independence outside the home, same thing. Have your student stay somewhere at a camp, somewhere overnight, somewhere away from you, tour campuses. It doesn't have to have a program. Just tour campuses and help them to see what college is. It's an abstract concept for a student that doesn't know anything. And I speak and travel all the time, and that's one of the big things is that, I don't know if my kid wants to go to college, because why bother? I haven't ever taken them because there's nothing for them. Well, tour, get them out there, get them be able to see it. And this is college. And so saving for college is important. With the stable accounts now, students with intellectual or developmental disabilities, there is a place to save money. So that is able to be used for education. I'm just going to flip through these pretty quick and just talk, and just kind of what I said. I want to leave a little bit of time for questions, but be the change. Talk to your school, talk to your providers, talk to the universities, because we've talked and continue to talk to many, many universities, and universities, not all of them, but many want the program, but they do need funding to do that. And so that's what Lead, Learn, Live's doing. But if universities don't know that's a possibility, there are universities all over our state. And so if you have a connection, talk it up, be the change, make the change to give these students more of a choice. Because right now, this is what our state looks like. And again, over 250, that was an older slide. Well, there's over 260 now, and we have one. in Oklahoma. And so very important that there is more choice, and there needs to be for these students. So there is a little video. I think I'm going to skip it because we're running out of time. It's on our, well, I'll go ahead and play it. It's 1 minute. We're good.
Look at us now, a moment we only know now. There's nothing that's holding us.
Stop sharing your PowerPoint and then share your video.
How about we do? It's on our website. Folks can see it. I just looked at the time and it's 10:20.
We only
so
have one question. So
yes.
So so we might have time for the video.
Oh, good.
But the only question so far that I've seen, and again, if you guys have questions, please put them in the chat. Is it says by course catalog courses, do you mean they offer courses just for special needs students?
No. Course catalog courses is access to the courses in the standard catalog of the university. It is not for special needs students. Because these students are wanting to take courses that they're interested in, just like you or I did. I can give you an example of how that works. You know, there was a student at a university that came in and they wanted to be a doctor. And it was obvious that this student would not be able to be a doctor because of their disability. And so did they say, well, you'll never be a doctor? No, they did not. What they did was they worked with that student to determine what they were interested in. And what they were interested in was actually wearing scrubs and being very tidy and neat and orderly. And so through the internship process, the course selections, they steered that student towards chemistry, lab type of venues. And so by the time the student got out, they were working in a lab, because what they discovered through taking the courses to see what they were interested in, which were regular course catalog courses, and the internships, was that what that student really wanted to do was to wear scrubs and be in a clean, tidy environment. And so when he graduated, he went to work for a lab, and actually over the years was actually promoted to supervisor of that lab. So if it was just classes for special needs students, that would not give them that opportunity to learn about what they think they want to learn about. And so that is very important that they have access to the courses just like any other student. So Riverhawks, I see another one, Riverhawks participants roommates with each other. And so it's a mix. They are roommates with each other at the beginning, and then afterwards they are able to, if they meet the requirements of an independent living checklist, then they're able to go out into the regular pool of selecting roommates just like any other student. But when they come in, they are roommates with each other to help that trained RA get to know them and what they need help with, etc. Financial aid, that's a great question, and that's the number one question I get now after I speak. And so right now, until the program gets the Comprehensive Transition Program designation, there is not financial aid available other than private scholarships. I know there's a student that has some private scholarships. Actually, a couple of the students that are in the program now have three private scholarships, that are available. Actually, Jen, you might have the link to those. You guys used to have a list of private scholarships for students with intellectual or developmental disabilities. But until we get that CTP, it is a self-pay program, which is a challenge, no doubt. And so as soon as the CTP is in hand, what that allows students to do is to have the same financial aid go through the FAFSA process, Pell Grants, student loans, all that stuff that any student has. So that is in process. you can't really do that until you have the program going. And so that is going to be applied for next year. So we should be on board by not this coming fall, but the fall afterwards. So, so Jen, you were saying, what about the video?
You just need to stop sharing your PowerPoint.
Oh, gotcha.
Remember, and then share your video.
Okay. Well, having technical difficulties. Thankfully, it's at the very end.
Right.
Okay, so if a student is a DRS or DDS eligible, are there any funds to support students to attend college or with college expenses? We're actually working on that right now. And so we are communicating and working with agencies to get that clarified. Right now, you will talk to different counselors and they will tell you different things because there is no policy yet. Tennessee and Kentucky are two states that have amazing models of DRS, voc rehab, working with the universities, and that's actually what we are working on right now in our state. So we are working on that because that is very common with other states. And, again, just like anything, it is a process. And so since this is so brand new, everyone's learning, including agencies. And so that is a main focus of ours right now.
Another question? So I have the video. I found it on YouTube real quick. Do you want me to try to share it?
Sure, because I obviously am not having issues.
This will work. I need to remember it. Share computer sound. Oh, nuts. Hang on, get that off. All right, hopefully you guys can see that. Can you see it, Julie?
Yep. There we go.
Look at us now, a moment we own it, no doubt. There's nothing that's holding us down, you and me, as good as could be, living this dream that we found. Look at us now, oh look at us now, hey look at us now. Look at us now. Sometimes it just takes a minute to change your life.
And so basically that's the reason we do what we do right there.
I gotta remember how to stop share. Okay, there we go. All right. Where's my chat? Because I think there's another question. If you guys open up this chat, I know of a list of scholarships that Oklahoma Ahead has on their website. And so you can put that in there. But if you just look up OK-Ahead /scholar, no, I'm sorry, OK-ahead.org/scholar.html, you should come up with their page. And they do a great job of listing different scholarships for even different disabilities. So like they'll have a link for scholarships for visual impairments or scholarships for learning disabilities. So definitely check out that page. So any other questions or whatnot? I think that's it. I don't see any questions in there. Do you? Julie? I don't see any other questions. Dean says, thanks for the info.
Great.
And
I can't believe I got it in 10:30. That's awesome. Okay.
And I totally lost my link. There we go. I will be, I'll email out the link, but if you guys don't mind, I just put in the chat a link for our survey. Please just click on that Survey Monkey. It's not very long, and it just gives us information about the webinar, what you guys thought, as well as it asks for your comments for new webinar ideas or length, if we should have longer webinars. I will work to get this video. I'll edit out the very first because it was recording some of the babbly stuff before we actually kicked off. But I will edit that out, and then we'll upload to our YouTube channel and send out the link.
Hang on.
So if anyone other has any questions, I guess you can unmute or chat. Use the chat. Otherwise, I think we're done.
Okay, awesome.
Cool.
My information is out there, so if you guys need anything, let me know. And I appreciate everyone listening. Thanks so much.
Perfect.